What up, though? Digital History. America as a Land of Opportunity. Author Benjamin Franklin. Date 1751. Perhaps the most important essay written by an American during the 18th century, Franklin's observations concerning the increase of mankind was one of the first serious studies of demography. Franklin, like other Americans as late as Lincoln, held to the belief that no man in America needed to long remain a laborer for others. Particularly jarring is Franklin's plea that America be maintained as an entirely Anglo-Saxon society. Europe is generally full settled with husbandmen, manufacturers, and therefore cannot now much increase in people. America is chiefly occupied by Indians, who subsist mostly by hunting. Reckon then the interest of the first purchase of a slave, the insurance or risk of his life, his clothing and diet, expenses in his sickness and loss of time, loss by his neglect of business. Neglect is natural to the man who is not to be benefited by his own care or diligence, expense of a driver to keep him at work, and his pilfering from time to time, almost every slave being by nature a thief, and compare the whole amount with the wages of a manufacturer of iron or wool in England, you will see that labor is much cheaper there than it can ever be by Negroes here. There are supposed to be now upwards of 1,000,000 English souls in North America, though 'tis thought scarce 80,000 have been brought oversea. This million doubling suppose but once in 25 years. And since detachments of English from Britain sent to America will have their places at home so soon supplied and increase so largely here, why should the Palatine Boers, Germans, be suffered to swarm into our settlements, and by herding together establish their language and manners to the exclusion of ours? Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens, who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion? Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionably very small. All Africa is black or tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also, the Saxons only excepted, who, with the English, make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. I could wish their numbers were increased, and while we are, as I may call it, scouring our planet by clearing America of woods, why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America? The Oxford English Dictionary online, the online version. American etymology. An indigenous inhabitant of any part of the Americas, now only with modifying word as indigenous American, original American, American Indian. The variety of English used in the United States, American English. Let that settle in. American English. Of relating to or designating the indigenous inhabitants of any part of the Americas. Of relating to or designating American Indians. Of designating or belonging to any indigenous language of the Americas or such languages collectively. The American ostrich. Originally, of relating to or characteristic of the European, especially British, colonies in North America or their inhabitants. Now chiefly of relating to or characteristic of the United States or its inhabitants. The Oxford English Dictionary, the online version. Indian. Of relating to or characteristic of any of the indigenous peoples of North, Central, or South America, especially those of North America. North American, made of corn or cornmeal. Hot water cornbread. Catfish, fried catfish, breaded with cornmeal. Y'all know the science. A member of the indigenous peoples of any part of the Americas. 1553, they saw certain Indians gathering shellfishes by the sea banks. Shellfishes, Indians. Y'all eat them crawfish, scrimps, lobster. Any of the indigenous languages of the Americas. Still talking about Indian here. North American, Indian corn. Indian bread, North American bread made from corn. Cornbread. Indianly, in the manner or style of any of various indigenous peoples of the Americas. Indian herb. Tobacco. Indian weed, chiefly U.S. frequently with tobacco. Not Newports, just tobacco. Not all them extras. Indianized, transitive, in the context of the Americas, especially North America, to make a person or thing indigenous in character or appearance. Indian tobacco, any of several Native American plants used in a similar way to tobacco. Indian smoke, tobacco smoke. Y'all won't smoke. Indian cock, the turkey. American Indian, a member of one of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, especially one of the peoples inhabiting land in what is now the continental United States. Indian blue, the deep violet blue color of the dye indigo. Indigo, Indian blue. Engine, colloquial, now offensive, chiefly U.S., A North American indigenous person. Engine. Them engines. Indian red. The color of a deep red pigment originally obtained from earth containing ferric oxide, now chiefly prepared by roasting ferrous salts. River Indian, a member of any various indigenous peoples inhabiting the area around a river in New England, especially the Connecticut or the Hudson. Eastward Indian, a person belonging to any of various indigenous peoples inhabiting the northeastern part of North America, especially of North America. Northern Indian, a North American indigenous person belonging to a Chippewayan people. Southern Indian, an indigenous person belonging to the Cree Nation. Home Indian, a member of the Cree living in the vicinity of the fur traders on Hudson Bay. Plains Indian, a member of any of the indigenous peoples who inhabit or formerly inhabited the North American plains. Indian peach, any of several varieties of peach tree naturalized in North America, formerly thought to be indigenous, especially one bearing fruit having deep red flesh. Georgia peaches, peaches, Georgia peaches. Indian pudding, Indian pudding, a dish consisting of cornmeal boiled in water or milk, usually eaten for breakfast. Indianness in the context of the Americas, an indigenous woman. Indian potato, any of various North American plants producing edible tubers, bulbs, etc., or the tuber, bulb, etc. of any of these plants, especially the yam. Bloody Indian, bloody Indian, a member of the blood people, one of the four groups making up the Blackfoot Confederacy. Blood Indian. Y'all know any bloods? Y'all seen any bloods? I think y'all have. Indian mound in the Americas, a mound or earthwork erected by a prehistoric people as a burial place, fortification, altar, etc. Copper Indian, an indigenous person of North America. Red Indian, an indigenous person of North America. Red Indian. Copper Indian. Rocky Mountain Indian, a member of any of the various indigenous peoples who inhabit or formerly inhabited the Rocky Mountains of North America. Indian paint, any of several North American plants whose roots yield colored dyes. Indian rice, any of several kinds of North American wild rice, especially Z. aquatica, which grows in shallow water, somewhere around South Carolina, perhaps. Indian ginger, the wild ginger of North America. Wild ginger of North America. Indian giving, the action or practice of giving Indian gifts, now chiefly depreciative and often considered offensive. Indian devil, either of two predatory North American mammals, the wolverine, gulo, the puma. Indian giver, a person who gives an Indian gift, now chiefly depreciative and often considered offensive. Amerindian, of or relating to the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Cigar store Indian, a statue representing a North American indigenous person, especially a man wearing a feathered headdress, placed outside a cigar store. Also figurative. Such statues are now often regarded as offensive caricatures. Indian hay. Smoking on hay in the middle of the barn. Marijuana. Cleveland Indians mascot. Cleveland Indians mascot. March 17th, 1925. Why they using your little brother as the Cleveland Indians mascot? They got a good reason for it. Oxford English Dictionary, online. Black. A word inherited from Germanic. Cognate with Middle Dutch, black ink, Old Saxon, black ink, Middle Low German, black ink, black dye, black color, Old High German, blah. Blah, Malone, to decorate with yellow. Further etymology uncertain. On formal grounds, the word could be from a base related to the Germanic basis of blank and the various forms discussed as blick. But since this would give an unexpected meaning, shining, white, shining, shines, white, there is an obvious semantic difficulty. Many have sought to resolve this by hypothesizing that the word meaning black originated as a past participle with the meaning burnt, blackened, of a verb meaning to burn brightly, derived from this base. This verb may perhaps be reflected by Middle Dutch, blacken, Dutch, blacken, to flame, to burn. Comparative evidence indicates that swart shows the reflex of the more usual color term for black in early Germanic, as still in Old English, which has gradually been replaced by black in this basic meaning in English. Compare the following Old English quotation in which the basic Latin color term nigger is glossed as swart, while two other semantically similar words are rendered by black. Of the darkest color possible, that of soot, coal, the sky, on a moonless night in open country, or a small hole in a hollow object, designating this color, also so near this as to have no recognizable color, very dark. From a scientific perspective, the quality of being black is due to the absence or absorption of all the wavelengths of light occurring in the visible spectrum. In general use, however, it is normally classed as a color. The color tends to be associated with evil and melancholy, and in Western society is the traditional color of mourning. Good morning, morning. Of a very dark color, especially of a very dark color. We're talking black here. Of a very dark color, especially a shade of red, brown, or purple, closely approaching black, of a very dark color, especially a shade of red, brown, or purple, closely approaching black. This is from wordnik.com. American Indian, a red-skinned member of a race of people living in North America when Europeans arrived. Back to black, of a very dark color, especially a shade of red, brown, or purple, closely approaching black. American Indian from wordnik.com. A red-skinned member of a race of people living in North America when Europeans arrived. A member of some indigenous peoples of the Americas, especially the United States. Crayola.com. When was the Crayola crayon color chestnut introduced? Originally introduced as Indian red in 1958, the color was renamed to chestnut in 1999. A red horse. Part 2 is forthcoming. Do the right thing.